시작해. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Jong Il-jae, co-representative of Korea Environmental Education Network. How was it? How was lunch?
Delicious.
Yeah, delicious.
Very.
It is a beautiful day, right? So we are somewhat unhappy because in the room we must be enjoy outside on the sunshine, but we have to study for meaningful or the valuable presentation waiting for us. We lost third session speakers. Dr. James Luzuri, he couldn't come here today because he informed couldn't come here just before ICC Congress. I think he has a personal problem. So you can guess third session will be free. But so we have the rest of speaker from session 2. Two speakers, one open discussion. First speakers is Mary-Lou Dixon. That's correct?
That's correct.
Mary-Lou Dixon, Manager of Community Participation and Partnership, Park Victoria, Australia. She will give us creating connecting of ESD to national parks for multicultural communities. Please welcome to here, please.
Thank you very much. I'd like to firstly thank the Korean National Park Service for providing me with this opportunity to share our stories here. We have a very valuable partnership that we gain much from with the between the Korean National Park Service and Parks Victoria. It's of great value to us. What I'm going to talk about is a little bit different to the other material that we've heard this morning. I'm going to be talking about educational opportunities, but not in the traditional education settings. Now, we did hear a little bit about, we heard quite a lot about sort of non-traditional settings. I guess mine steps it even further in that they're not necessarily structured educational experience in the traditional sense. But what I would like to run you through is some of the activities that we're involved with. You saw the video just before lunch, which actually gave you an insight into some of the diversity of programs and activities in which we're working. Parks Victoria knows that it is critical to create a personal connection for people to nature. We heard Dr. Shin earlier talk about this. It's very important. It's the personal, it's the, I'm trying to think of the exact word, Dr. Shin, but it was very much about the individual, a spiritual, a deep feeling connection to nature. Right, got two things. Oh. I'll provide a little context about where the organisation that I work for. Parks Victoria is the state government agency that in the southern area of Australia. We manage national parks, state parks, regional parks, and quite importantly, urban parks. And I'll talk a little bit more about that but it's an extensive network of parks, and it provides Parks Victoria with a unique opportunity to connect with the broader community. I'm sorry, I'm not driving the technology very well. The reason Parks Victoria, yes, thank you. The reason Parks Victoria has a specific focus on a multicultural society is that Australia is very much a multicultural community. 1 in 5 people were born outside of Australia or have a parent that was born over, 1 in 5 people were born outside of Australia, but over 43% of people actually will also have a parent born out of Australia. They come from 200 countries with over 180 languages. So it's a very diverse and different community. Australia is very committed to education for sustainable development. Our national government has adopted the is a signatory to the UN Decade for a Sustainable Future, and we very much value the education model of sustainable development. In fact, just now Australia has adopted a national curriculum, and sustainable development is one of the 3 pillars of that national curriculum. So it's important. Australia is actually weaving sustainable development throughout its educational experiences. So that's actually from the earliest entry into the school system to the most senior exit point for us, which is Year 12 or the senior school. And the sustainable development is interwoven through all the curriculum. It's also multidisciplinary, so it will appear through music, it will appear through sporting activities, it will appear through mathematics. So it's actually applied and cross-functional, which is quite unique and quite dynamic. It also incorporates a lot of student activity and a lot of student engagement with that work, so that's also very exciting. But the unique thing is this provides Parks Victoria with a fantastic opportunity to be a part of that connection with nature and the lens to sustainable development. We also have the very traditional interpretation programs. Sorry, there's been a slight change to my presentation, so I'll just have to keep going with this. We have traditional interpretation programs that engage communities through very traditional park-based settings. We provide education, we provide interpretive messages through structured interpretation programs, often delivered by rangers. So we have the traditional base that you would find in many national parks across the world. We also have another very interesting challenge in that climate change, as is affecting the entire world, is a very pressing and very relevant topic to our community. Climate change is manifesting in large-scale fires. Large-scale fires across the whole of the southeastern part of Australia. Fire is very present in the southeast landscape of Australia. We're one of the most fire-prone areas in the world. That, coupled with urbanisation and the increasing growth of communities around the protected area system and the park system, means that there is the intrusion of fire into urban settings is actually more and more present. So not only is it in the far-flung areas of our state, but it's also in coming into very urbanised settings. Now that provides a real challenge for us, because if people are not connected to the importance of biodiversity, if they're not connected to the importance of parks for their own health and well-being, they can see that fire is a huge risk. They can feel that these areas are actually dangerous places, and so we want to make sure that they understand that this is not the case, that there are many opportunities and they are of great value to the community. I'd like to also highlight that Australia, one thing I did mention was that we focus specifically on multicultural communities, but we also focus on much more. We focus on persons with a disability as well. and we have a very high rate of disability in our country. 1 in 5 people actually have a disability. Now that would also be reflected across many countries across the world, particularly with an ageing population. We're slightly behind some of the countries, Korea and Japan, I think, in terms of our ageing population, but the issues of disability will become more and more prevalent. We need to provide specific messages that target those communities. We also need to come up with programs that engage these communities that are not as connected with nature. Our rangers are heavily involved with our education program. We have 4 education centres across the state. So traditional education settings, schools will often come and join in those education programs using a structured curriculum. That curriculum is also available online and available to teachers to take into their own classroom and incorporate the messages. But we want to get to other people who may be not engaged in the formal education process just yet. One of our tools that we use is this rangeroo, this lovely little character in his furry suit and with his friendly face. Is a program that specifically targets young people. And what's good about him is he's warm, he's cuddly, he's a connection to people, he's easy, he's accessible, but he can provide sustainability messages, he can provide messages about how to behave, the value of nature, the sorts of things you might engage with and see in nature. He also has a club with which children participate and they can be involved with. He also is used quite readily in performances, in different cultural performances, and he's very, the kids love him. Here, this is the sort of cultural event at which we use this particular icon to perform. This is a large multicultural community just on the fringes of Melbourne, and this is their Christmas event. So it's sort of, he's a multi-use, I guess, tool in a way to connect these messages to the community. And he also is able to go home with them, which is an important thing. We also have a range of cultural activities that occur in parks. So we work in partnership with the local government organisations, arts bodies, community organisations to provide opportunities for parks to be a fantastic venue with which the community engage. And as a result, we get numerous cultural festivals and events. So people feel that it's the thing that people feel passionate about, they can do and be connected to in the park-based setting. We've done some work with specific targeted groups. So this particular group is, it was a Turkish women's group. Now they participated in an activity where these women didn't traditionally leave the home without their families. Many of them had actually been settled in Australia for 10 to 20 years. They came together, they participated in a park experience, and they created stories that were personal to them whilst learning about the natural environment. That exciting experience enabled them to lead the messages back into their families and back into their community, and these exhibitions travelled around after that event. We have a strong connection with the Indigenous community. Now you saw in the earlier video the connection with the Yorta Yorta people. So we have a number of communities across the state with which we work in co-management. Many of the communities are actually disconnected through dispossession from the landscape. That's why our emphasis on the youth in that video gives you an idea of the sorts of activities we can do to connect and develop greater pride in the landscape. We have many staff in our organisation that bring the knowledge of traditional land management practices, which we can then incorporate in our programs, and they become much more dynamic, inspiring, and provide us with an opportunity to connect a deeper and richer experience to the people that are connecting to parks. This particular image is of a scar tree in a park. So scar trees are the traditional practice of making canoes. And they were done in such a way that the health of the tree was maintained. I played to that video a little bit earlier. We're also using innovative techniques to connect to communities that are sometimes hard to get to. Young people, particularly teenagers, are not always easy to engage with. They're not always all that interested in being part of formal programs. So using arts and cultural activity, we were able to bring a different lens, a different style of activity. That partnership was with an arts organisation, it was with a school, it was with the local government, and Parks Victoria's role was to provide a fantastic venue and access to the Indigenous community. And you can see the results. The enthusiasm from those young people is very moving. They obviously have come away with a very personal experience, and this young woman on the screen has gone on, she developed the skills and confidence to go on to now become a volunteer guide at her local information centre. This is someone who actually hadn't been participating outside of her family before. We incorporate opportunities for communities, new migrant communities, to participate in our management planning processes, because the management planning for parks, particularly for new parks, is a great time to engage those communities in a new area. That early chance, that early opportunity to create that connection, we hope will create a longer term relationship with the landscape. And what better way to feel that you've had an influence on the way a park is established and the sorts of things that you can do there and the sorts of facilities that are provided there than to be involved in the very early planning. So this particular partnership was with a migrant settlement program with an English as a second language class. They went out into the park and learnt about the natural world as well as practicing their English at the same time. So again, not necessarily, always a slightly different way of actually coming at it. They may not have been there strictly to learn about the environment. They were there to learn English, but they learnt a lot and created a lot, it created a lot more value in the opportunity. They then went on to participate in things like tree planting. So again, creating a reachy connection, because if you get to see a tree grow up, you certainly sort of know your relationship with that landscape. We also have been involved in ranger training. So many of our rangers, we have quite a traditional, many of our rangers are over 45, tend to be from an Anglo-Saxon background. They're not necessarily reflecting, the ranger group is not reflective of the very multicultural society in which we live. So what we've done is provided training for our ranger staff in working with multicultural communities, but also in working with persons with a disability to understand and to start to work more proactively and understand the barriers for those groups. We also have a range of other programs, volunteer activities with which we can then transfer those individuals into. So this is a sea monitoring program with which they're involved. We've been working with young people with disabilities, and I have a video similar to the style of the one that I showed earlier of these individual stories. It's been part of an endangered species recovery program. So now they then, again, were there for the social benefits and for the opportunity to be out of their home and with other people, with other communities. But the richness of the experience means that there's a number of these individuals have gone on to become ongoing volunteers in helping us with the parks. We have another program which is called Discover Parks. So this is a terrific program which engages, we enable community organisations to submit a small grant application, and we provide them the funds to help their community connect to nature. Those communities determine what they would like to do, where they would like to do, the sorts of cultural events they might like to participate in. And what it has done is it also means that we're getting a huge value adding from the community organisation. We provide them with information about the park and also the messages about sustainable use and sustainable activities in the parks in their own language. It's meant that we reached out to huge sections of the community through those community organisations, because those community organisations work with their clients. They know the things that will motivate their clients and what's important to their clients. And we're getting some terrific results. This is a particular activity that was done by an inner urban group from a community housing estate. They participated in the traditional Lantern Festival in an inner urban park called Yarrabeen Park. They watched the grey-headed flying fox migrate from the park at night and head out into the suburbs. Working with persons with a disability has given us a great opportunity to better understand the barriers to participation by people with opportunities, because again, a personal connection to the landscape enables them to better understand and absorb the other messages. It's given them the chance to experience things by us reducing the barriers. These are very small efforts that we've done, but they resonate incredibly widely. We've had such interesting attention to these sorts of things that these sorts of initiatives are being picked up by the tourism sector and have actually been picked up across the world. So as a result, we're actually getting the flow on the side effect of this is we're actually increasing our economic return to the park, but also to the regional businesses that depend on the park. And it's enabled us to really better understand the opportunity and the breadth of how far people can go and how big a challenge that they would like to be a part of. Similarly, we're doing the same sorts of things in grants with other community organisations. And this delightful shot is the first time this gentleman had a chance to watch his son go surfing at this particular beach. It's a beach in Wilson's Promontory National Park in Victoria, and it was a very moving experience. So again, providing opportunities, reducing barriers to access. We're also, what's really important is to engage through activity. Our Healthy Parks, Healthy People initiative